So we've got the ovary, the site of ovulation. Let's just say we've got ovulation that occurs, the ovum is released or the egg's released, and then from there it travels into the oviduct. And then they're a pair of coiled tubes because we've got two different ovaries on each side of the uterine horn. And so the oviduct spans from near the ovary to the tip of the uterine horn, and it transmits the gamete and is the location of fertilization as well. And so the first segment is the infundibulum, which is a funnel-shaped portion opening near the ovary that actually reaches out and it's almost like a funnel. And that Graafian follicle bursts, the ovum is released, and that infundibulum is the catching point for the actual gamete there. Then the next part is the ampulla or the neck of the oviduct, and the ampullary isthmus junction, and the isthmus is actually the part that joins the uterus to the oviduct. But at the ampulla and isthmus junction is actually the specific site of fertilization. For me, I always try to remember that site of fertilization as the AI. Just like if you're artificially insemination something, the AI junction is where that site of fertilization occurs. From there, we got the next part of the reproductive tract is the uterus, and it houses the fetus. There's two horns with one common body. It extends from the tubouterine junction to the cervix. Again, the uterus, uterine horn is actually where the fetus is housed, not in the body of the uterus. And so the fetus is going to be on one side or the other in the uterine horn. The caruncles are the button-like projections that allow for nutrient flow to the fetus. And the fetal attachment, so on the fetus side, occurs at the cotyledons. And so the junction of the caruncles and the cotyledons is almost like a snap that you would see if you're snapping a shirt or something like that, where those two fit together, and that's where they join. And then upon birth, the caruncles and cotyledons will separate when that animal goes through the birthing process. You can see just a picture of the uterine horn, and in the bottom there would be the body of the uterus, and then you can see the two horns that separate out. If you're actually going in and palpating an animal, one way to really determine if that animal is open or not is when you go in, you can feel the body, and then you can place one finger through in between those two uterine horns, and if both of those horns are kind of within reach and grasp, usually that's a pretty telltale sign that that animal is open and not bred. The cervix prevents the contamination of the uterus and protects the fetus. I always like to relate it as kind of like the burglar bars. It's just a way that it protects that fetus from the outside world, and it does it through a cervical plug, which is a mucus, but then it also does it because of just the overall design of the cervix. It's a very thick-walled tube. It almost feels what I like to relate to is kind of a chicken neck. It's kind of real gristly in appearance, and it's got a lot of physical obstacles in addition to the mucus that prevent introduction of foreign options in there. The posterior protrudes into the vagina, and it's got those interlocking annular rings that help provide a physical barrier as well. We'll show you a picture here in just a minute of the fornix, or the blind pouch, which is the protrusion of the cervix into the vagina. So the cervix kind of protrudes into the vagina, and there's a pocket around it that is also another barrier. But it also makes it a challenge through artificial insemination, because you've got to just fit the AI catheter into the center of that cervix, and sometimes you'll get hung up in the fornix of that. And so as you can see in this particular drawing here of the cervix, you can see those annular rings that are a physical barrier of that. You can see where the fornix protrudes into the vagina, or the cervix protrudes into the vagina, and that area around that is where the fornix is. And here's another picture. As you can see, the os cervix, the opening of the cervix, and then the way that that cervix protrudes into the vagina. And there's an opening around there that really will present some challenges in the artificial insemination process. The vagina, it serves as the organ of copulation and also the birth canal of the calf. It's a thin-walled tube. It's very elastic. And the anterior vagina is the location of semen deposition by the bull. And the one thing about the anatomy of the female, bovine female, is that when you first go in there, if you're doing rectal palpation or artificial insemination, you go in and the vagina is there, and it's very soft, pliable tissue. The next segment is more of a cartilage, gristly type, and that's the cervix. And then after that, the uterus is more of a soft, more pliable tissue as well. So that helps and aids you in kind of getting your bearing, whether you're artificially inseminating something or if you're doing palpation or just maybe some diagnosis of some problems there with the reproductive tract. The vulva is the external entrance to the reproductive tract, and then the clitoris, which is similar to the penis, and it stimulates hormone release as well in the female. So again, you can see just a broad overview of the anatomy of the female, bovine female, and you can see as we work outward, we've got the vulva, then the vagina, the cervix, the body of the uterus, and then you can see where the two horns split off, and we get our two uterine horns, which then go into the oviduct, and then finally the ovary there at the end of it. And the broad ligament is the support and provides the blood supply of the reproductive tract there. So just a little briefly, I wanted to hit on this, and we'll get into this a little more detail in hormones and also in the artificial insemination. The cow-estrus cycle is very important because the reproductive cycle of the cow consists of a series of events that occur in a definite order and over a period of days. And that cycle averages about 21 days in length, but it can be anywhere from 17 to 24 days depending on the cow. And really what that 21-day cycle does is it's the preparing of the reproductive system for estrus or heat, so the period of time when the female is receptive to sexual activity or being mated by the bull, and actual ovulation, which is the release of the egg. And again, we'll discuss that in further detail as we talk about manipulating the estrus cycle to meet our reproductive goals, whether it's artificial insemination or maybe closing up or closing the period of time when cattle are being bred and ultimately will calve as well. So that wraps up a little bit on the female side of the reproductive system.